Katie Couric, kind enough to join us. Katie, how are you?
Hi, Dan. Nice to hear your voice.
How did you think the interview fared, if you were going to assess it as a whole?
I think he did very well in the interview. I think it was incredibly compelling. I think he was very honest about how this relationship unfolded. I don't think he concocted this hoax. I think he was honest about his shortcomings and in terms of being completely honest about, the nature of the relationship. I think he conceded. He misled people after he knew that something was terribly wrong and that the whole thing was just completely fishy. And I think his parents are very compelling and very sympathetic. So I think it's a fascinating story, and I thought it was a fascinating interview.
Why do you think he did the interview?
Well, I think, people were talking trash about it everywhere you turned, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there was a lot of information out there, some of it inaccurate. It's a very interesting lesson, I think, for journalists about this whole story, the fact that it was never really investigated. And, the Sports Illustrated reporter who did the cover story on Manti made the transcript available. And if you read it, you can see how Manti added to the myth himself by some of the things he said and by some of the many things he didn't say. And, he said to me, well, nobody asked me if I had actually met her, but he certainly said things that led people to believe he had. He lied to his dad, and I think his dad repeated that, which, again, added to the storyline. So, I think that he's not totally innocent in this in terms of how this story got out, but I do think he was victimized by this individual.
The fact that it was a man impersonating a woman.
Well, that's what it's being reported as, right? I mean, I think so. Dan, we actually played some of the voicemails that were left on Manti's phone during the course of this interview, and I asked him about that because I had heard rumblings that this could conceivably be this Renaya person, this 22-year-old young man who Manti claims admitted to the hoax, that it could have been his voice playing the part of Lene, which just gets weirder and weirder. And I asked him about that, and he played the voicemail, and he said to me, it sounds like a girl, doesn't it? I said, yes, it does. I said, what if it is this young man who he said, well, then that person is incredibly talented to do this day after day.
I'm also trying to figure out the end game here, because originally I thought I understood why Manti Te'o would embrace the story, because, you had wives and girlfriends and grandmothers. They bought into Manti Te'o. It was more than just a football story, and he was a Heisman candidate. And it's Notre Dame, where they make these stories larger than life.
Right.
The end game for somebody who was pulling off the hoax, I thought, was their extortion. It went beyond embarrassment. And then I figured that it was this Tuiasa Sopo character who had a crush on Manti Te'o, and in his world was trying to strike up a relationship with him, as a guy impersonating a woman, as strange as that may sound.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that is accurate. I mean, and in terms of the end game are you saying for Renaya?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I asked Manti about that because he had a phone conversation with him on January 16th where he admitted that he, was behind this hoax, according to Manti. And he said that thought he was helping Manti. I mean, I think it was this strange codependent relationship. I think it was based a lot. They talked about Bible passages a lot. Manti's dad would send her, in air quotes, scripture passages, and they would discuss them.
But Katie, why couldn't he be a man on the phone with Manti Te'o to help him? Why did he have to impersonate a woman?
Well, I think I'm not sure if Manti Te'o would have been that interested in having a long-distance phone relationship that had a lot of intimacy if it were a man.
If Deadspin doesn't break this story, does this story ever go public? Did you ask Manti if he was ever going to be honest and tell the truth, or Notre Dame was going to reveal this?
Well, I think on December 25th, he talked to his parents about it. and he told his mom when he went home for Christmas. This was after, as you'll see in the interview, he asked for a specific photo that came to him several days later that apparently Renaya was able to get from this high school friend under the guise of another story. Anyway, it's so complicated. But he did tell his mom on December 25th and his dad on December 26th, and I think they were trying to figure out what to do about this, how and when it could have been public, if they were going to try to just keep this as, a terribly embarrassing situation. I don't know. That's a good question, probably one I should have asked him.
Katie Couric, the show is Katie joining us. Dan Patrick's show, the Manti Te'o interview, will be airing later on today. Anything off limits as you went into the interview?
No, nothing.
Was there anything that you didn't get the answer, or you didn't get an answer that was satisfactory, I guess? Was there anything that you said, I asked, and I sort of went, because we saw that with Oprah with Lance. There are a few of them that you just say, come on, Lance, you're better than that. Did you have?
I think I sort of did that during the course of the interview. So ultimately, I think I did get answers to all the questions. Now, whether or not people feel his behavior or the way he reacted was appropriate, that's really for other, people watching to judge.
But you're also looking at somebody's personality, and as long as you've been doing this and interviewing, from top to bottom, biggest names in the world, there's a believability, but then did you look at him as, was he naive? Was he?
Very. I think he's a very naive, very young 21-year-old who is very dependent on his family. And, I think also I have to say from what I gather from his account, the person behind this was extraordinarily manipulative and incredibly, really almost weirdly intelligent about the way this was conducted.
Well, it's almost like a perverted, beautiful mind here. Yeah,
there are a lot of movie comparisons I think you could make to all of this. I think, I just watched that documentary Catfish last night.
Yeah.
And, the similarities are very striking. This one woman in Michigan playing a variety of roles, really sucking this guy in, a New York City guy, sophisticated, intelligent, and you can kind of see how it could happen. It seems so bizarre, I think, from the outside, but when you enter the mind of the person, of the target, and potentially the mind of the person perpetrating this, you can kind of imagine how this could happen, even as strange and bizarre as it seems.
Did he show you phone records?
Yes, he did.
And these were hour-long chunks, 2 hours?
Hours. Mm-hmm. Dozens of calls, some short, many of them for hours. But it's really interesting. I hope you'll watch. I have to go do another show,
okay.
Dan.
Katie, I'll let you run.
I'd love to stay and talk about
know
this
you're
some
busy.
more, but watch the interview and tell me what you think.
All right, great. Katie, thank you for your time.
All right, good to talk to you, Dan. Take care. Bye.
Katie Couric.